I will tell you, this is the story that was the very, very first story I worked on to write my book. And it has a very, very special significance to me. Now, on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other, about all these things that had happened. And while they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you talk along the road?" And they stood still, looking sad. And then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in the last days?" And he asked them, "What things?" And they replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and our leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. And some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then the stranger said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in all the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead as if he were going on, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread. He blessed it and he broke it, and he gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour, they got up and returned to Jerusalem. And they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. And they were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told how he had made himself known to them in the breaking of the bread. Thus ends the reading of the word. Thanks be to God. There are numerous themes in this story, but the two major ones that I'm tuned into and want to focus on are the themes of recognition and remembering. One of the first questions that everybody asks is, the first 2 lines. "Well, it was Jesus, how come they didn't recognize him?" Everybody asks that question. How come they didn't know it was him? It was on the morning of the resurrection when Mary Magdalene encounters Jesus in the garden and says she supposed it was the gardener. Well, Luke has a reason for these 2 disciples going down the road not being able to recognize the one he's already named as Jesus. The 2 people going down the road, I asked one of my professors, an Episcopalian priest,
They're getting out of town. Imagine, if you will, that you have been present for the resurrection and you deserted at the time of the, you were present for all of the days prior to the resurrection, and you deserted at the time of the crucifixion. And you didn't go to the tomb that morning to check it out. You just get the news afterwards, because where are you hiding? Where are the disciples hiding? They're hiding. You know they're hiding. The disciples are hiding in the upper room, in that place where they had the Last Supper with Jesus. They are hiding there. They've been hiding there. Now, we have these two who hear this story that says, Jesus is alive. Now, tell me, how would you feel if, because you don't identify with Jesus, do you? None of you do, right? You identify with those guys hiding in the room, don't you? Okay, so if you're identifying with the guys hiding in the room, and somebody comes to you and says, he's alive, what are your feelings? Well, that's a nice one. Well, that's also nice, but you were the ones who ran away. He's alive? How do I explain? How do I explain my role, my work was to be a disciple of Jesus? How do I explain that I ran away? Think. These two disciples, Cleopas, and I think the other one was Mary, quite frankly, because Mary is the wife of Cleopas, and I don't suppose that he'd be leaving town with anybody else. But Mary. So I think it's Mary and Cleopas walking down the road. And I don't think that they're very enthusiastic about being joined by anyone. The stranger stops and says, what were you talking about on the road? And Luke tells us in the text that they stopped and they stood very still and they looked very sad. They're making a decision. Are we going to talk about it to this stranger, or are we going to keep it to ourselves? Have you ever been in that position where you told something to a total stranger that you wouldn't even tell to your mom or your dad? These two invited the stranger to walk along with him and decided to empty their hearts to this stranger. Saying, are you the only one who doesn't have any idea what went on for the past 2 days in Jerusalem? Where have you been? You know, you want to say, what were you doing? Sleeping under a bag of grain? What were you, drunk in a corner? How could you not know what went on? Let me tell you. And they unload, they tell their story, they tell their experience to the stranger. And they say in the midst of it, we had hoped that he would be the one